we've never been fashionable. We never kind of conform to what's, you know, the happening thing in the UK. But we do well around the world at different levels with people who like what we play, you know, and they enjoy the songs and they like the group. So I'd forgotten that, and actually playing in America and starting playing around Europe has brought that back to me again. I'm much more comfortable with what we're doing. I mean, there have been moments on this tour when you get on the bus and you think you're going to drive somewhere and you're going to play a concert, and that's your job, and it's like, I know, and it's just that feeling. I just wanted to encapsulate that feeling of like that I'm doing something that is exactly what I wanted to do when I was young. Well, there were times when we were making the album in a beautiful house, if only, that you would have a sense that it was perfect.
I really don't think I hate anyone as much as this.
When Roger left before, it was quite sad, really. I mean, there's a lot of tensions going on at the time, but now it's sort of older and wiser, and it's really good fun.
Clouds shoot by and everything is like a dream. It's everything I wish.
It's like I always say to people, it's like being in a completely new band, but it virtually is the way personnel's changed around.
It is a different atmosphere, and also with Jason being in it, it's sort of the different components make it. It's still funny, but it's funny in a different way.
I think that almost the perception of the Cure is kind of that they're very sombre, sort of. But there's a lot of quite good jokes, generally good jokes. Sometimes not so good.
Current lineup of the band is Robert, Simon, me, Roger and Jason. Roger coming back.
Roger O'Donnell on keyboards, Jason Cooper on drums, Robert on vocals and guitar, and Perry on guitar, and me on bass.
It sounds like the Cure to me. I mean, it sounds really good.
With regards to keyboards, it was alright because we knew who we wanted. It was just whether Roger wanted to come back. But sort of finding a new drummer was untapped territory. It was a bit, sort of took quite a while. But we found Jason, which is good. I don't know if he knows that he's in the group. I don't know if he knows who he is actually.
Well, there was an advert in a paper called Melody Maker, and it was, I think the ad said, very famous band needs drummer, no metalheads. So I answered that, and that was it.
Strange attraction spreads its wings. There is but the smallest thing. You never know how anything will change. Strange attraction spreads its wings. Alters but the smallest things. You never know how anything will fade.
It's funny because when we were doing Wild Mood Swings, I enjoyed it, but there were parts of the process that I found very frustrating because you kind of focus down on the minutiae of what you're doing, and you can go insane in a different way. You know, like you get really paranoid about, is that note, you know, should it be like a half beat or a quarter beat? And then you're thinking, who really cares? It's split pretty evenly between my original idea for the record, which is going to be very, very acoustic and like real strings and something quite an intimate sort of sound, and some of the other stuff which is very kind of loud, sort of like rock. And there's this third element that's crept in of very kind of quirky, sort of strange songs, which like every fifth song tends to be.
Strange attraction spreads its wings, the altars but the smallest things. You never know how anything will fade.
They are all really different. I mean, that's why the album's called Wild Mood Swings, because it does kind of like jump wildly. And Bear's pretty intense, but there are observations in that song on various relationships that I've seen disintegrate over the last kind of 5 years. And it was only when I started writing the song that I realised how much it had affected me.
Got something left to say. Like to say it now. Anything will stay. Just say it now. You know the greasy end. Just don't know how. Oh, at least we'll still be friends. One less useless vow. One less useless vow.
I think it's because there's like an emotional content that does resonate with people that they can like, kind of understand. And I try and keep it very simple as well. At the end of the 1992 tour, I was a different person. I changed and I hated what I'd turned into. And as I was living in a bubble. And I've approached this, I mean, I've discarded a lot of the elements of what I didn't like about touring on this tour. Essentially, I didn't really want to just do another tour and get exhausted at the end of it and hate everyone else in the group, and the group breaks up and I have to find someone else to make the next album. I think it's like a really pointless process, and it's always happened historically. Whenever we finished a world tour, the group breaks up. At least one person leaves, and I hate everyone that's left in the group. You know? And then it takes about a year for me to start talking to them all. So, whereas at this point, we're kind of almost 2/3 of the way through, and we all still go out with each other through choice. You know, if we have a night off, we actually go out to eat together, or go to the bar together, which is how it should be.
Don't want to try, don't want to walk, don't want to wonder why. Why did he cry? If you do that, you'll be missing the world. It doesn't stop turning whatever you hold. You do that and you're missing the world. You have to get up, get out and get gone. Yeah, get up, get out and get it on. Get up, get out and get gone. Get up, get out and get gone. You get up, get out and get away. Yeah, this is really it.
13th tonight, because it was a hit in Italy for some reason, and we haven't done it yet in Italy. And after the last two shows, we've had people kind of like handing us tear-stained letters. Why didn't you play the 13th?
Right, imagine that I'm talking Italian. This is a song that we haven't done, and because you like this one, apparently. It's called the 13th.
People appreciate if you're trying to do something and it goes wrong, at least you've tried to do something for them that's different. So, I mean, we've got about 110 songs now that we can play. So doing 3 hours is only really about 30 to 35 songs, so it's not that many. I mean, we can do like different sets every night of the week. In America, we changed at least 7 songs, I think, every night, because there are people. Another reason, there are people following us around. I mean, in Europe, even more so. There's like a bunch of people that number in their hundreds that kind of like will follow us around an entire country and see every show. So it's partly for that reason as well, that you kind of think, well, if they're bothering to do that, then. But it's mainly and primarily because it's more fun to do a song and you're not quite sure how it's going to turn out, or if I can remember the third verse. It actually adds a little bit to the stage performance. It makes every night unique and it keeps everyone on their toes. And there's 10 approximately that are kind of favourites, you know, like Just Like Heaven or In Between Days, things that if we didn't play, people would go away from the concert thinking, why didn't they play, you know, my favourite song? And in the old days, I didn't really care about that so much, but now I sort of think it's a bit kind of like cutting off your nose, you know, because why bother playing the concert if you're not interested in what the audience think? So the audience will become much more important to the group as a whole, I think.
Show me how you do that trick. Look makes me scream, she said. Look makes me laugh, she said. Put her arms around my neck. Show me how you do it. I promise you, I promise that I'll run away with you. I'll run away with you.
Essentially, I would find life unbearably pointless if I wasn't creating something. That's at the core of what I do. And whether it's called The Cure or whatever it was, that's kind of secondary. I mean, I'm playing music and writing songs because I found that I find that's the way that I can express myself best.
Most residential studios are big country houses that have been turned into a studio. Very expensive to stay on. And we realised that you can rent a house for yourself and then it's totally yours, to all intents and purposes, and just bring your own gear in and you can work at your own pace. Whereas if you're staying somewhere and you know you're paying £1,000 a day or something, and there's staff there, sort of, you feel like you're a visitor, whereas you can make this place your own.
When I am far from here,
yeah, I'd just say to everyone, are you writing? How do you feel about doing a new record? And then we get together, we listen to each other's tapes, and just the whole thing kind of just tumbles into shape, really. It's always very, very haphazard, the way that we work. But I've written down chords that I think will work just now, but whether they will or not, I've no idea. Because they're not based on...
We never sit down and say, when should we make an album? It just sort of happens and materialises.
Robert will, when he's accumulated some songs that he's happy with, will get, you'll get a call from him saying, I've written these songs, we should go down and put them down. Have you done any yourself? And then you sort of lie and say, yeah, I've done a few.
I don't believe any group that claims to work as a democracy, because it just can't. You can't have a group that works as a committee. I mean, everyone has their input, but ultimately the responsibility for the songs rests with me, because I'm having to write words and I'm having to sing over them, and if I don't believe in the song, then I just can't do it. So 4 goes and then the chorus bit, which is just once through and then 4 goes. Right.
Well, the process of the way we write and record has been the same, really. We will go away, we come up with, we'll put ideas down on the Porter studio, and then we all get together and sort of sit around and play each other ideas.
But normally we would just sit down and kind of play through it a few times and see what feels the most comfortable tempo, how everyone feels about what they're playing individually.
All our demos are there.
Yeah, that's there's a chord in it, so weird.
This one, on the second line in the chorus, I understand why that goes like FCFC, but you feel like you should go to the G, don't you? I don't understand.
You don't want it, 'cause
you want to save it.
We'll use that.
And it's very rare that I'll sit down and write a song, but gradually over a period of time you get enough material there, hopefully, if you're living outside of a box, that you can pick up on things. I try and take things, if I read something that I really like, I just make a note of it as an idea for something. I kind of write all the time. I'm not really for songs. I just write because I find it's a way of relieving my stress levels.
I ride into your town on a big black Trojan horse. I'm looking to have some fun, some kind of trigger-happy intercourse. Brother America salutes you, says the girl on the door. We accept all major lies, we love any kind of fraud. So go on in and enjoy. Go on in and enjoy.
I've always really shied away from being a songwriter because I think then you start to observe life and people, and you don't actually take part. You kind of always watching. I hate that. I mean, I drink too much to be a good observer anyhow.
Pulls me down to the sound of the sea, steps to the side and stares up at me. Is this how it happens? Is this how it feels? Is this how it starts? Is this how it starts?
I really like Due to Crash, and it's a really good song.
I think that's lyrically one of the best songs Robert's ever written. The words just work brilliantly.
Or maybe it's more like a moth to a flame. She brushes my face with her smile. Forget about stars for a while. She meanwhile, millions of miles away in space, the incoming comet rushes Jupiter's space and disappears away.
Due to Crash was really about the comet crash of a couple of years ago, as an analogy for a failed sexual encounter and how you kind of build people up. Everyone was keyed up to expect the comet to kind of hit Jupiter, and Jupiter was going to explode. Unless you had a pretty powerful telescope, you couldn't see anything at all. And it just made me laugh, and it was that sort of sense of like this big build-up, and the next day people were saying, that was rubbish. I was thinking it wasn't rubbish, it was incredible, but it wasn't what you expected, and that was the analogy. Half of me thinks like if it's a good song, you can play it on an acoustic guitar and you should be able to stand up in front of someone and sing it and it's a good song. That's a really old-fashioned half of me that thinks that. It's like the buskers test. I hate buskers, but I've like through the years I've realised that does really limit what you can ever attempt. How are you going to play backwards stuff live? You can't do it, but does that mean you should never use like a backwards effect in a song? I never give it a second thought anymore. I worry about it after. I think if it works on the record, you then think, how are we going to interpret this live? I mean, quite often it's dull just trying to reproduce what you've done on the record live. I mean, there should be something different about it, otherwise there's not really much point in doing it. You might as well mime. In Paris, we dusted off a song called Colds from Pornography, which I don't think we've played for like at least 10 years. So effectively it's like a new song. I like the interaction with people as well. I mean, that's why The Cure has always been a live band, because it's like it's always played a big part in what we do. But when I'm on stage and it's like, and I'm halfway through and I catch myself thinking, this is why I do it. I think that there are lots of different levels of what I think the group has achieved. There are some that are very personal to me, that are kind of like milestones, albums and songs that I've thought I've made something that I'm really proud of and that pleases me. There are other levels when I see what the group's done, how it's affected other people, which pleases me in a different kind of way. And I don't really see it so much as a linear kind of event. It doesn't start somewhere and I'm not going somewhere. It's like at different stages in my life, I do things with a group called The Cure, and I see it in that way. It isn't actually like this journey that I'm taking with the group. It just reflects my different moods at whatever point I'm at, and usually is much more to do with other things that happen in my life.
I've never been shown the part we play, the way we are. Each of us denies any other way in the world. Why each of us must choose, I've never understood. One special friend, one true love. Each of us must lose everyone.